What is going on, y'all? And thanks again for joining us here on Expanded Perspectives with me, COVID Cam. And as always, joining me, but not beside me. Actually, I'm quarantined down in the Skelekin Studio, and Big Fizzy is hiding out someplace else. What's up, Big Fizzy?
How's it going, everybody? Yes, I'm not there. I'm in a different location. I'm actually podcasting out of Luke's room. That's correct. So if you hear a whining in the background, that could be the cat known as Gizmo. I can see his paws under the door. He doesn't like it when I'm in here alone. And but yeah, that's what we're doing. Cam is locked down under COVID protocol, and since we don't want to get sick, no one is going to actual Skelekin Studios. I don't want to go back to the hospital again. Mary doesn't want to get sick. So we're doing a remote edition of Expanded Perspectives. I know the audio is not going to be the best, but this is what you're going to get for today. But how are you feeling? I know everybody's going to be interested in how you are actually feeling.
Dude, you know what? I feel a lot better today. It was weird this time. It wasn't like the first time. It didn't seem to be as near as rough as it was the very first time. The only thing about this one is I actually had fever. So the first time I never ran a fever. I just had the real bad chest stuff, you know, no taste, no smell and all that. This time, about 2.5 days worth of like a real up and down chills and then sweats and all that. And then poof, that's about it.
Yeah, you probably got the new variant, right? Omicron Part 3 or whatever. Who knows?
Man, there's no telling what's going to happen to me now. But is it just I keep evolving? I'm like the fly. Something's going to happen.
Brindle fly. You need to see if you can find one of those to 3D print for Luke.
A brindle fly?
Yeah, he was just asking me the other day. You know that big toad you printed off for him?
Yeah.
He was like, ask Uncle Cam if there's any more creatures like that he could print off for me. I want some. And I was like, all right, I'll ask him.
The heck yeah. I can round some of them up for that fella.
All right. Well, I'm glad you're feeling good.
Yeah.
I'm doing good. It's hot. The AC is working at my house, so I'm good to go. But it's about 104 degrees, I think, right now. It is brutally hot. I know it's hot every July in Texas, but man, I don't remember it being this hot.
Actually, we got off easy the last few years.
We really did. We really did. Today's my wife's birthday. I would wish her happy birthday on the air, but she doesn't listen to the show ever. So there would be no point. Actually, nobody
hear it. Yeah.
Nobody in my family listens to the podcast, which is very odd because I have teenage boys.
They're tired of you.
Yeah, I have teenage sons, and every once in a while they'll come to me, hey, Dad, do you know about this YouTube channel? And I'll be like, no, I'll check it out. And I'll go on there, and I'll start watching it, and it'll be a guy like telling crazy cryptid sightings. And I'm like, that's kind of what I do, right? Like, I've been doing it for a decade. This guy's been doing it for 2 years. They've actually told me they do not care for my voice or your voice. They like to hear somebody else do it. So, I get it.
That doesn't surprise me.
No, it doesn't me either. I don't like the sound of my own voice or your voice. Every time I have to sit there and edit, I had to learn how to get over that because I'd be like, I just sound like an idiot.
Yeah.
But moving on, I got a cool listener story. I know that you
Hit
like
me with it.
You like these sightings that seem to be increasing, and we even named a band after it, the Trash Bag Duendes.
Yes.
This woman has a strange sighting. Check this out. She says, greetings from Middle England. I've been a long-time listener ever since your interview with blurry photos, all the way back in 2016 or something crazy like that. You never fail to be a little ray of sunshine in the middle of a weekly drag. I felt the urge to contact you with this story as it's downright weird and something close to what you've spoken about on the show a couple of times. Today was a family friend's 72nd birthday, and while at dinner, the subject of UFOs was brought up. Everyone had a wild story or two, apart from me, to share, but my mom prompts the birthday girl to share a particularly strange account that she had. Now, to preface this, we live in the middle of England. It's nice here. Low rolling hills, medium-sized towns, all extremely tame, small and suburban. Now, this day, she was walking down her street on a calm, sunny day with her sister When at the bottom of the road where it intersects with another street to form a T, they saw something floating just above the 2-floor houses. Their first thought was it had to be a large black rubbish or trash bag floating in midair, minding its merry business, but it got stranger. As she took it all in, she now describes it as something akin to a Dementor from Harry Potter, floating, rigidly upright, slightly bigger than a man. The loose fabric or plastic gently flapping in the wind as it slowly floats down the street in front of them, not deviating from its course. Before seeing where this dustbin Dementor went, she panics. She screams at her sister, "They're going to take us!" Now, who they were, I don't have a clue. And then she ran home, dragging her sibling behind her. Now, my friend is a former school teacher, and I won't deny she's a believer to a certain degree. However, she was that day just a sensible, down-to-earth woman who was having a sensible, down-to-earth walk-in and ran into something a bit strange. She is describing it as a large black rubbish bag in a vaguely humanoid shape that was able to fly in a straight line without deviation on a relatively windless day. I hope this gives you a little smile. Not quite a trash bag duende, but I feel flying, self-controlling rubbish bags aren't something you come across every day. Thanks for everything you do, and thank you if you read this. Regards, your friend, Sarah. Well, Sarah, thank you for sending that in. I'm glad that you've been listening to us for so long. I'm glad that we can be a little ray of sunlight in your boring week. But I'm telling you, you sending us stories like this brings a little ray of sunlight and happiness to us, right? Cam, what do you think of it?
That is awesome. I love this. I love it. Dustbin Dementors.
Yes, yeah.
They're going to be opening for trash bag duendes.
I'm telling you, the T-shirts are already, I'm getting these ideas in my mind already.
Right? Dude, that is cool. It's weird, though, that, again, it's seen around the world. The same thing. There's a lot of stories. A lot of people have sent stuff in that it's not in one area. It's almost, again, like that's a manifestation that maybe nobody paid a lot of attention to until recently, or until, people started talking about it, and then other people stepped forward with their stuff.
Yeah, I agree. And like when she's talking about the fabric or the plastic flowing, I kind of think of, you remember the movie Spawn with his cape?
Oh, and his, yes.
That's what
like it almost had thought.
Yeah, that's what I picture.
That's pretty cool.
Very
man.
cool.
Well, look, if we're going to be talking about duendes and small things, listen to this. Lon had shared this with us. This is really interesting stuff. There's been a lot of cases of small humanoids reported throughout Argentina over several years, okay? And when I say small, I mean like very small. Like, listen to this. It says an Argentine researcher in the field of ufological phenomena tells us about several cases in which various witnesses observed extremely small humanoid creatures. Now get a little of this, Philly, 20 to 25 centimeters. Said we must note that all creatures are anthropomorphic. There is no creature with one arm, for example. All have 2 arms, 2 legs, spine, eyes, mouth, etc. And that says here that this first case took place in the 2000s in a cornfield near Macachín, La Pampa, Argentina. It was in broad daylight, and an agricultural worker approached the cornfield and reports that he saw several small men, 20 to 25 centimeters tall, out in this cornfield. There was another case that took place of a little girl in 1968 that says while playing, she saw a puddle near the bushes and a living little man no bigger than 20 centimeters. And after talking to this little man, she said it was confiscated by the father of her playmate, who was a guard in the area. Wow. Like he grabbed the little fella up and took off with him. Said there's another one of a professor. Professor Corrado is a relative of Professor Novelita from Puente de Inca, and that the two made a short stop on a summer afternoon to take a picture, and after it was developed, managed to see a humanoid figure between 15 and 20 centimeters, and behind him was a kind of device which would have been what they could have been, or they say believed to be, a spaceship this little fellow was in.
Wow.
Yeah. So you look, there are tons of these little stories of these little people. Now, is this the Fae? All right. Like you and I have discussed, because it sure feels like these are little Fae people.
Yeah, I agree.
These Fae everywhere, right? Do you feel like they're in all the woods or only in some? Because I don't know that they're everywhere.
I don't either, but 20 centimeters, that's like 8 inches. So it would be like a little bit larger than like a G.I. Joe action figure, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It would be like, here's a perfect representation. I got this guy right here. I'm in Luke's room, so there's 20 centimeter tall figures everywhere in this room. I can't imagine. Yeah. I can't imagine strolling through a cornfield and seeing a bunch of little guys like that messing around. What were they doing? What was the name of that field? What was the name of the area in Argentina that you said that was at?
That field?
Yeah.
Macachin, La Pampa. Macachin.
You know, that's where I import my popcorn from. I'm a big popcorn connoisseur. Yeah. Oh, yeah. They got the best popcorn. I'm telling you. I'm telling you.
Well, you remember those little guys in the movie Willow?
Yes. Yeah.
That's what I think of.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Because they were little. I mean, these are even smaller than the Duende, than anything that they are talking about. These things are tiny. There's another case, listen to this, it took place in Aris in southern Cordoba. It says a man was driving a truck along a road in the morning. Just a few feet into the field, he saw an oval-shaped device resembling a transparent dome. He estimated that the device was over 2 meters in diameter. The man stopped the car and approached the object, claiming to have seen 7 or 8 tiny beings about 30 centimeters tall who were completely naked. This man returned to his truck to pick up a hammer to break the glass dome. And as he went to pick up the hammer, he felt the object rise in the air behind him, which rose higher and higher and then disappeared. Behind him, he left yellow smoke, it said, and it smelt like sulfur.
Ooh, interesting.
So there's 7 or 8 tiny naked beings. Man, they're just out living their life, right? Like, come on now. And now you're going to go try to smash their little globe with a hammer?
Yeah.
Come on, man.
What a jerk. I mean,
like, why vacation?
Why are you trying to vandalize their property?
Right.
You know, why is it, though, when you think about aliens, extraterrestrials coming here from another world, you never think about them being tiny. You just never do. But who's to say that they're not? Maybe all extraterrestrials are like only, 20 to 30 centimeters tall.
Well, like we've talked about, that's like riding around in the head of the one in Men in Black. That's what the alien greys, they're driving the alien greys. I'm going to leave you with this one. It says, in Azul, a city in Argentina in 1985, a couple said they saw a man and woman measuring about 20 centimeters dressed in military uniforms right next to a sewer. Their hair was light brown, almost blonde. It says the couple hid in one of the drainage holes, and it seems that the tiny creatures have been observed on other occasions.
Wow.
So imagine if you came across, what was the Nickelodeon show? The Littles.
Yeah.
Like you find a whole Fraggle Rock Littles community down underground somewhere.
Right. It reminds me of...
That would be crazy.
Like the cartoon where the guy shows up on an island and when he wakes up, there's all these little people trying to tie him down.
Gulliver's Travels.
Yeah. It's like that. Like maybe these extraterrestrials, this is exactly why people always see them. And everybody's like, well, if they were visiting, why wouldn't they make themselves known? They're terrified of us because we're giants.
Right.
Violent
and
giants.
It's easier to hide when you're little.
That dude, they were just there sightseeing, and this guy already, his first instinct was to go get a hammer and bash their ship in.
And look, he's got to stare at them like, why are they naked? Like, how did you know they were naked?
Right. I don't know. And the releasing of sulfurous gases.
Yes.
Why is the smell of sulfur always associated with strange sightings? You ever notice that?
Always, Josh, always.
Very, very crazy. Well, what are we going to be talking about on today's show?
I'm going to be getting into some of the stories that people have asked about of staircases in the woods to kind of cover that and talk about where it started, how it originated, and then some of the other crazy stories that I've found recently that still come up with staircases in the woods, folks. Stick around. We're going to jump into it next. You're listening to Expanded Perspectives. What is going on, y'all? As I alluded to a minute ago, it's COVID Cam. I'm in lockdown, right? Fam got it. Thought I dodged it. Did not dodge it. It's been rough. Not terrible, right? Not awful. Just been one of those things that's not fun. But it has given me some time to look at some stuff, talk to some people, do some things like that back and forth, send out some emails, get some things covered. But still not a good times. But I think I have something enjoyable for y'all. And this is all Tasha's fault. She's the one that asked me about this a while back, and we talked about it, and now I'm going to have to discuss it. So, girl, it's all you. I remember when all this started, and what I'm talking about is staircases found in the woods. I remember when all this started. This is one of those things that's it's hard to pin down, right? People will tell you it started in No Sleep on Reddit. It was all a fictionalized story. People say it was all on creepypasta and that it spread from there and that people are adding to the lore of this. And it's quite possibly that's what happened. There's also a whole group of people that believe that it was placed in No Sleep simply because that way it would be looked upon as fictional and that it would be easier for the person writing it to not be in trouble for said stories that they're passing on. This could be even, to build up the lore of it either way. But what is odd is much like some of the things that we cover, it's almost taken on a form of its own. It's like it's self-perpetuating because there are numerous accounts still coming in, people still posting them. You'll find them online of them running into stairs in the woods. Now, not all of these stairs in the woods are odd. Not all of them are crazy, creepy, deep in the mountains. No, it's not like that. There are a lot of stone paths that were made and laid years and years ago, maybe at old homesteads on public land now or old land areas that are being found. Look like, neat, moss-covered, lichen-covered old staircases, right? And then there's some that you could tell were probably, there's poured concrete. They're much more sturdy than the home that was built behind the staircase. And so the stairs are all that's left. Or, maybe it was put out there as something that went to an old building, right? And then the building was hauled off, the staircase was left. There's a lot of those stories that you'll find online where people have found these and will tell you, oh yeah, it was crazy in the middle of nowhere. But then, they go on to say, oh, but you could find the footprint of a building. You could find this or find that. Some report nothing happens. They go and they play on them. Or some people report superstition. Superstition basically keeps them from playing on them, right? Ooh, I've heard these stories. And then there's other accounts of very strange things happening once you walk up them, once you get near them, things growing around them. Grass doesn't grow around these staircases or vines or nothing. Like these are literally sitting in a little clearing in the middle of nowhere by themselves, almost like it's a stairway to the Fae side, right? The Fae realm. For those that haven't heard the original accounts and stories, I've got some here for you of this person that wrote in to, like I said, on Reddit, talking about being a SARS, a search and rescue park ranger type, and that says that I have a pretty good track record of finding missing people. Most of the time they wander off the path or slip down a small cliff and can't find their way back. the majority of them have heard that the stay where you are thing and that don't wander too far off. But I've had 2 cases where that didn't happen. Both bother me a lot, and I use them as motivation to search even harder on the missing persons cases that I've been called in on. And he goes on talking about the first one that, was a real bothersome was a little boy that was out berry picking and went missing. The parents had lost sight of the little fella a few seconds, and again gone, right? And it kind of sounds like the whole story of the young boy, the Martin case, where something might have carried this boy off. And there's these others. As one is according that a mother and her daughter had climbed a tree to get a better view of the forest, and she never came back down completely, right? Like this woman said this young girl was out with her mother and her grandfather, and this little girl climbs this tree and vanished up in the tree, like went up and never came back down. They called search and rescue. They came up. This little girl had gone up, and the story said it never came down. That's kind of how the SAR person here led into this whole story to get started, is very strange, unnerving stories that had happened to him in search and rescue, or to them in search and rescue. And they go on to say that a few of the stories they got from people they worked with, and this one came from this person and that. I could easily see this being, simply someone flexing their fictional writing muscle. And what I'm fixing to share with you, you could probably easily see that as well. But I could also see this as being a way that someone could get some of these stories off their chest and not have the pressure of repercussion, right? You have built this already into the story of plausible deniability in a way that you've placed this in a fictional setting. And this is also one of those ways, much like therapists have people use puppets to talk for themselves or put on masks because it's easier to share. This could easily be something that way, given that we've gotten some more stories, or it could simply be nothing more than build-up. Who knows? But I'm going to share with you some of these staircase stories. This one goes like this, says, I don't know if this is true in every SAR unit, but in mine, it's sort of an unspoken, regular thing that we run into. You can try asking about it with other SAR officers. But even if they know what you were talking about, they probably won't say anything. We've been told not to talk about it by our superiors, and at this point, we've all gotten so used to it that it doesn't even seem that weird anymore. On just about every case where we were really far into the wilderness, now I'm talking 30 or 40 miles, at some point, we'll find a staircase in the middle of these woods. It's almost like if you took the stairs in your house, cut them out, and just placed them here in the forest. I asked about it the first time I saw some, and the other officer just told me not to worry about it, that it's normal. Everyone I asked said the same thing. I wanted to go check them out, but I was told very empathetically that I should never, ever, ever go near any of them. I just sort of ignore them now when I run into them, because this actually happens quite frequently. Now, there's a lot of feedback I've received about these stairs, so I'm going to touch on it briefly. They come in a variety of shapes, sizes, conditions, and styles. Some very dilapidated, just ruins, while others seem to be brand new. I saw one set that looked like they had came from a lighthouse. They were metal and were spiraled, almost old-fashioned. Now, the stairs didn't go up infinitely or farther than I can see, but some said are taller than others. Now, like I said before, just imagine the stairs in your house as if someone cut and pasted them in the middle of nowhere. I don't have any pictures, and I've never really occurred to me to try again after the first time, and I don't really feel like risking my job over it. So I'll try again in the future, but I can't really promise anything. Now, see right there, back, and I'm not going to take photos of them. All right, I can kind of see this. Now, there's still a great amount of interest in these stairs, and luckily for you guys, my friend has a story that I think you'll be very interested in. I'll go into that more at the end of this update. As for whether or not I'll ever thought of asking my superior about them, I have. But again, I don't want to risk my job. However, one of my former superior no longer works as a SAR officer, and it's possible that he may be willing to talk to me about it. I'll be speaking to him later in the week, and I will let you know what comes of it. So my buddy has been a SAR officer for about 7 years. He started when he was a junior in college, and he had a very similar experience when he first encountered the stairs. His trainer told him almost the exact same thing mine did, which was to never go near, touch, or ascend them. For the first year, he did just that, but apparently his curiosity got the better of him, and on one call broke away from the line, and he went to go check out a set of them. He said they were about 10 miles from the path where a teenage girl had vanished, and the dogs were following a scent. He was on his own, lagging behind the main group, when he saw a set of stairs off to his left. They looked like they were from a new house because the carpeting was pristine and white. And he said as he got closer, he didn't feel any different or hear any weird noises. He was expecting something to happen, like bleeding from his ears or collapsing. He got right up next to them and didn't feel anything. The only thing he said that was odd was that there was absolutely no debris on the steps, no dirt or leaves or dust or anything, and that there didn't appear to be any signs of animal or insect activity in the immediate area, which he also found strange. It was less like things were avoiding them and more like they just happened to be in a relatively barren part of the forest. He touched the stairs and didn't feel anything except sort of a sticky feeling like you get from new carpet. Now, making sure his radio was on, he slowly climbed the stairs. And he said it was terrifying because the way they'd been stigmatized, he wasn't really sure what was going to happen. He joked that half of him expected to be teleported to some other dimension and the other half was watching for a UFO to come swooping down. But he got to the top of a little event and he stood there looking around. But he said that the longer he stood on the top step, the more he felt like he was doing something very, very wrong. He described it as the feeling you'd get if you were in part of a government building that you have no business being in. As if someone was going to come and arrest you or shoot you in the back of the head at any second. He tried to brush it off, but the feeling got stronger and stronger. And that's when he realized that he couldn't hear anything anymore. The sounds of the forest were gone, and he couldn't hear his own breathing. It was like some kind of weird, awful tinnitus, but more oppressive. He climbed back down and rejoined the search and didn't mention what he had done. But he said the weirdest part came later. His trainer was waiting back at the welcome center after the search had ended for the day, and he cornered my buddy before he could leave. He said his trainer had this look of intense anger and asked what was wrong. "You went up them, didn't you?" My buddy said it wasn't phrased as a question. He asked how his trainer knew. The trainer just shook his head. "Because we didn't find her. The dogs lost her scent." My buddy asked what that had to do with anything. The trainer asked how long he'd been on the stairs. My buddy said no more than a minute. The trainer gave him this really awful, almost dead-eyed look and told him that if he ever went up another set of stairs again, he'd be fired. Immediately. The trainer then walked away, and I guess he's never really answered the questions my buddy asked him about it since. So right there was a few stair stories that this fella's friend had run into. And then I come across this, y'all. It says, I came across a set of stairs in rural West Virginia. Now, I don't think it was quite 40 miles deep, but it was at least 10 miles or so back in the country. I thought maybe a house had once stood there, but there was no cellar or other debris that would indicate a home was there before this. Just a set of stairs with a base that went up maybe one flight, 16 so steps if I remember right, and they were very sturdy, like you could barely shake them. Now, I didn't climb up them. I was worried it might break or fall over, and I was alone. So I didn't want a chance twisting an ankle or breaking a leg. But there these stairs were, over 10 miles in the backcountry. So there's another very strange story of finding stairs, but not finding a footprint around these stairs, right? Like we were talking about. Another person wrote in about finding stairs in Michigan, saying an hour east of Ironwood, there's a clearing in the forest that has stairs. I was hiking and exploring with my cousins, and we stumbled upon a clearing about half a football field long. It had a few staircases, but not against trees, just standing in the open. They looked like stairs from a normal suburban home. Kind of old, though. Now, the older cousin decided to investigate, so he walked to the stairs to see how they were being held up, and he couldn't find anything, which weirded him out. So we all got ready to leave, and as we walked by them, we noticed that the grass wasn't growing anywhere near the stairs either. Now, see, that's another strange thing, right? Because you think of an old farm home, right? There's no, let's say there's no sidewalks, no pavers, there's no anything. So the grass around the base of the stairs would be bare and, bowled out if you think back to the old homes that you see as you walk across the grass, and then the stairs are the start of the home, correct? So as you're off, up and down, you may pitter-patter and beat the grass dead in that area, which would explain it. But there's no home. And I would imagine out in the middle of nowhere, the grass is going to grow pretty good when there's nobody walking on it. So again, it's a weird thing, right? This is a very, very strange thing. Here's another one that's a little odd. That says this. It says, back in 2016, I was on a NATO deployment with the Army, and I'm a mechanized infantryman. So I'm a Bradley gunner, which means when driving to our next location in the area, I'll stand up with my head outside the hatch so I can look around. So we're driving in this huge open field, which is a training area, and this is in Germany, by the way. And I saw what used to be a tiny house that was just pretty much all rubble. But there was a staircase that was still intact and leading to what used to be a crawl space. So I told my driver to stop because I wanted to check it out. So we all get out of the Bradley and walk closer to inspect it. And as we get a little closer, we see strange markings on the staircase and decide to go down it together. But when we all get to the crawl space, it's big enough to fit maybe 3 people. And in there, we find human bones and more strange markings on the floor and walls. Now, I'm assuming this little house was hit by a tank round back in World War II. And the family who used to live there went down to hide and died down in here. But what makes this weird is that this was the only house for at least 100 miles in this area, because this was an Army training area. So how has no one else seen this? All of my soldiers remember this day, and we went back there a few weeks later to show all the others what we had found. And we could no longer find that staircase. We could no longer find the home. We could no longer find any sign of it. I don't know what we encountered. So folks, another crazy staircase story. So again, this is a very, very strange thing. We get these reports. There is a report I had read recently out of Georgia. A young man had posted, and I don't remember exactly where in Georgia, that he and his cousin were on an ATV ride in the mountains and came across a set of stairs that they had stopped somewhere out in the backwoods, walked to a certain area, and decided this is where we're going to we're going to throw up a little camp, maybe something like that. Slipped back over there and ended up finding stairs. Well, knowing the stories and hearing the stories, the young person writing the story said, I'm not doing this. Like, I'm not camping here. Let's get out of here. The cousin again was like, you know what? I want to see what this is like. I want to walk up on what's going on. Making a joke out of it. So finally talks the younger cousin into, okay, let's step up them. They both walk up the stairs, right? Side by side, boom, 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 stand at the top. There's only 6 stairs. They get to the top, there's a little landing there and all that, and that's all that's there. Now, they don't talk about or go into detail of what's holding it up, but they do talk about it's like, that's it. It's just the 6 stairs and the stop. They get to the top, same thing. They're standing there. They realize, hey, I can't hear anything. Like, I'm not feeling well. Like, something feels off, right? Like everything, like the vibrations, like whatever it is, like you're not tuned to go through the passageway, right? Like, you're out of tune, bro. They come back down off of there, head swimming. They don't feel right. They go get back. They decide to go, we're not going to camp here. Let's go camp somewhere else. Well, we're not feeling well. Let's go back. Anyhow, basically ended up missing like 8 hours. Like the time they were gone, the time it went out there, that they were gone for like 6 to 8 hours in there before they got back. So they had found it in the morning or whatnot, got out there, boom, vanished, and then reappeared on these stairs according to their timepieces. Of course, they were expected to be gone overnight, so nobody reported, nobody said anything. This is a story that you get. We will get other stories. I've read other stories with these stairs involved where they were found along creeks. I guess it would probably be like if you were going to have a walking path way back in the day or something that was made along those lines. People use them, ascend them, run up. Now, nothing happens to them, right? Not this crazy stuff like we're talking about with missing time or with people with people walking up and vanishing or possibly losing their job over their stairs. Now, there's also, like, we're not the only ones with some of these stories, right? Like, there are a few from other places around the world, and that's another thing that makes me wonder is staircases are not solely American, right? They're not solely like this is what we have. Staircases are used around the world for billions of years, right? Like, come on, if you could stack 2 rocks, you've built stairs up a bank. That's the way this whole thing works. So you go to look. Now, there are some crazy ones, like I said, from around here. More of them that involve park rangers. There's ones of a young park ranger going to the top of the stairs, I remember reading, and like reaching for a door, pretending, right? Like losing a hand, like in front of everybody. Shink, gone. The hand's gone. They never find the hand. Nothing. It's literally like it just got sucked off, gone, cut off, taken away, wherever it goes. That's what it did. I remember reading stories like that. And then I remember finding this story that I thought was interesting. I think you're going to enjoy this. This was one about a staircase that vanished in the 1940s. There's a fella, there was a story out there that this fella that worked for the CDC back in the day said that he had been called in to assist on an investigation based around animal mutilations. And this fella claimed that after the Roswell incident, that there was the mutilations started, right? More and more of this stuff started picking up. The story goes that during this whole time that people working around this area started reporting finding weird stairs, and that this set of stairs would give off this weird frequency, right? So they were like, what is this? So they go and they set their campsite up, and they're not far from it, right? They're less than 100 yards from these stairs, and they're staying the night, keeping an eye on what the hell these things are. Story goes, they wake up and they're gone. The stairs aren't there. But where that they were there, like where they had been, is a big burnt spot, like something charred the ground where the stairs had stayed. The fella telling the story says that over the next 2 days that these stairs would reappear about 50 meters or so away from where they were. So they decided to go up and get some samples from it, right? So they tried to sample part of it, but the wood structure on this staircase, they said, would not even chip off a piece, that the wood was harder than any steel that they had ever tested, the wood on this staircase. They could not get a piece of it. And they also said that this thing was emitting a frequency, this staircase was, but they could not figure out where it was sending this frequency, who was picking it up. They ended up studying this thing for a few days, and poof, the story goes that back then it vanishes, right? Gone. This is, I guess, in probably the very late 40s, early 50s, right around in this area. As the story goes, that's what happened, which is extremely interesting. Now, you remember me telling you also about the 2 cousins and whatnot. Well, what's funny about these staircase stories is it seems, and I guess it's not funny. Most people are going to be in the woods in partners or pairs, right? You go out in groups or with your friends, whatnot like that. Very few go alone. But I just find it funny when it's always almost like repeating itself, right? It's 2 young boys, boy, like y'all are getting in some serious trouble. This took place in Sweden. It's 2 young boys, same thing. They had been traveling for a while. They came across a staircase. The whole thing, didn't know what was going on. The story goes that they want to climb up them. They go climbing up them. They hear a bunch of screams, like banshee screams, right? Just inundated their brains when they get on there, just overwhelming them. They take off running, right? They're just running for all they're worth to get away from them. Their minds are being tormented by this. And the one older boy he's out in the lead, and he feels the younger boy reach up and grab him, like, stop running, we're good. So he stops running, and he said the boy's grip is cold like ice. And he turns around, and his friend is like 75 yards behind him, has already stopped running. He's not running. He don't know who it was or what it was that grabbed him and stopped him. This ice cold grip that touched his shoulders. As crazy as that is, I was telling you about time travel. I was telling you about time slips. I'm going to leave you with the story that comes from the Philippines way back. And I don't know exactly when this went down, but the story goes that there was this fella named Park Ranger T. And I don't want to butcher his name, so I'm just going to call, or their name, I'm going to call him Park Ranger T. T was always tasked with searching for missing folks in the jungle. So a SAR agent in the Philippines. Because apparently, like anything else in the jungles and forests over there, as bad as it is, we get lost here. Imagine getting lost in there, like the Amazon or any of the forests and jungles in the Philippines, any of that heavy jungle area. I'm not about that, right? Like I don't need any parasites. I don't need any of that stuff going on. And I definitely don't want to get lost. So SAR Agent T was out doing one of these routine searches, claimed that he found not one staircase, but two. And that these were deep, deep into the forest. And that out of curiosity, and he wanted to get looking off this little edge, he thought, well, you know what? I'm going to go up this staircase and just see if I can see a little higher off the ground. Says that the very first staircase was a stone structure. All right. And it had carvings in the stone. Again, sounded a lot like the one in Germany, right? Had these carvings. Now it goes on to say that the second staircase, though, looked like someone had built it out of natural stone, like had found the rocks in this area and again stacked them, right? Made their own natural staircase. So not necessarily a freestanding one, let's say. Now, story goes, he didn't find any of the sign of these missing backpackers, but he did see a stray dog. He talks about that. And so he goes up these stairs to get away from this dog. All right. Now, he says that he finally comes back. Everything's deal. He's like, oh man, had to run up these stairs, get away from this dog. So I can't find him. I'm out a few days, and I go on back. So he decides, I can't find them. I've looked. I'm exhausted. I'm going back to town. He goes back to town, and it's kind of blown away by what's waiting for him. He goes back to the ranger station, and they all look at him kind of completely in shock, in utter shock that he's there. He no longer has a job at the ranger station. He's like, what are you talking about? He's like, I ain't been out there but like 14 hours is all I've been out there since we rolled out. He said, yeah, that's not true, bro. You've been missing. He said, what are you talking about? He said, I've been missing for 5 years. SAR Agent T allegedly walked up these stairs to get away from an aggressive stray dog in the jungles of the Philippines, only to vanish and reappear thinking that he'd only been gone a few hours of the day searching for backpackers, but to reappear 5 years later trying to get his job back. I say give the man his job back. The fella was just doing some good investigation, right? Like, besides, if you run away from your job, why would you go back 5 years later and pretend like you didn't do it? Like, oh, I didn't run away. I just some time slip. I need my job back. Anyhow, folks, that is a breakdown of the staircase. I don't really know if you would call it a flap, if you would call it I don't really know how you would to put it. I don't know if it's folklore, if it's our lore, if it's all BS, if we've created it. It seems to be, if you listen to this show, it seems to be that the more energy that is put into these topics and put into these subject matters, and the more people report on them, and the more people start coming out with these stories, the more these stories start coming out. And that's just it. We don't know if they're stories or if they're true accounts. We have no idea. But it seems to be an overlap of one and the same. So you don't really know. But I know this. If I ever see any stairs out in the woods, I will not be going near them. Folks, let's take a quick break. I'm going to go cough in the corner, and then we'll come back and wrap this baby up. You're listening to Expanded Perspectives. back. Okay. So we've covered it. We've covered that it started off in no sleep. We know for a fact it was written in no sleep. And like I alluded to, if you were going to tell the truth and put stories out there that you know other people might recognize that you could possibly get in trouble for, the best way to do it is to wrap it in a fictional binder and lay it out on the internet, knowing it's going to be debunked, disproven, forgotten, whichever, whatever. You know, I'm just saying. Right. I'm just saying there's lots of ways you could do it. More than likely it was fake. More than likely it was written fictional stories, and that's all it was. Could have been this, could have been that. The odd thing about it still remains, like Kyle and I have discussed in the past about all of these things, once you start giving them legs, it's almost like they grow on their own. So how is there so many stories and more people talking about not just the strange ones that they find, these staircases out in the middle of the woods, way out in the middle of the woods, but even staircases that they find in local parks, in local areas of abandoned buildings, in local, just any place that's not way out of the way. People will still talk about finding these odd staircases and having very strange experiences around them. Grass not growing around them, not feeling well while they're on them. Now, not quite as crazy as the fella missing for 5 years, you know, all of this stuff. But there are time slips that take place around them. It doesn't make sense unless it's Fae realm, right? That's the only thing it can be.
Correct.
But then again, why would the Fae build giant staircases in the middle of nowhere? They don't need them.
Well, you're right. I've heard of mystery doors that are actually portals to other worlds. Same thing with staircases. In fact, you were just talking to me earlier today about how when they started doing research at CERN, they might have unlocked something unintentional. They might have created a parallel universe, right?
Yeah, there's theories out there that's where the Mandela effect originated from, and that's why we have these different core memories as children. If some of us remember certain events, some of us don't, as things come up, as there's a theory that it splintered us into an alternate timeline. Some of us are here that were here originally, and some of us aren't, in the way it kind of overbled and scrambled things together.
Yeah, well, when I was cooking in my house a couple weeks ago, I wished I was at a different dimension, not in the one where I have no AC, because it was terrible. Now,
all that was doing was preparing you for where you're going after you die.
Yeah, that's very possible. Very, very possible. Now, when you were telling me about the parallel universes and the Mandela effect, of course, and the Bernstein Bears, these are all the ones I'm familiar with. I was not familiar, though, with the Publisher Clearinghouse one. That was a new one.
The Ed McMahon
That was a new one to me.
Yeah.
I do seem to...
And see, I remember Ed McMahon, and I know it says online. No, I remember that.
Yes,
I remember Ed McMahon with the big check. Yeah, I remember him on Johnny Carson. I remember him with balloons. I remember him with these things. But it says that it didn't happen.
Yeah, man.
And I know there were other people that talked about, what was it? Was it Shaq? Or was it the comedian? There was a comedian that they had been like a genie.
Oh, man, I know who you're talking about. You're talking about
Sinbad.
Yeah.
But Shaq was in another one of those genie movies or something where
Kazam.
He was like yeah. And people were like, well, y'all are getting those two mixed up. Now, I don't remember either one of those because I wasn't into watching, right? Like, I've never seen those films.
I never have either.
But... So I don't know, but it's got to be the same feeling, right? Like, I know that feeling. Like, if you know that really happened, it's a weird thing. And I like to not think about it. That's one of those things is I don't want to go down that path.
Man, sometimes I think that I have time slips from time to time. Like, I was just driving through Boyd the other day, and they have like a video rental store there. Like, you could still go rent VHS tapes. And I'm like,
really?
am I experiencing a time slip? No, I didn't stop. I thought I was experiencing a time slip, so I accelerated. I don't want to be anywhere near there.
Accelerated.
Speaking of strange, check this out, Cam. It says, howdy, Cam and Kyle. I've been listening avidly to the show for the past year, and I'm finally committing to sitting down and sending y'all my story. In many of the listener stories y'all read, people say that they went a long time without hearing of anyone experiencing anything similar to what they had, until one day they finally hear a story that sounds like theirs. Well, after listening to y'all read who knows how many stories, as well as reading countless other stories of the weird and unexplainable throughout my life, I can confidently say I have never heard of anyone encountering a quiet or being quite like what I saw in my backyard when I was 8 or 9 years old. I grew up in Austin, Texas, in a suburb pretty close to the city. When I was really little, we had a bunch of invasive bamboo in the back corner of the yard. But my parents at one time had it all cut down when I was around 4. However, in the very large lot behind ours, there was still a big stand of bamboo, and the old lady that lived there didn't mind if kids played back there. So, I would move aside a couple of those cedar posts in the fence and delve into the bamboo forest. There isn't much more fun you can have as an 8-year-old boy than having free rein in a bamboo forest with a machete. I would cut paths through it, make staffs and torches out of the bamboo, and cut different paths whenever the old ones were filled in by new shoots. I spent a lot of time back there. Sometimes, when I was in the bamboo forest, I would think I saw a quick movement between the stalks just out of the corner of my eye, only to find nothing there. I mostly wrote it off as an active imagination. But one night, around the year 2001, after finishing an arts and crafts projects for school with my mother, I went out my back door to put away a pair of pliers we had been using for the project in our tool shed. As I was walking up to it, I got the vague impression of a shape in the darkness beside the shed, and I stopped in order to take a closer look. Now there was a light on from the shed, which made a fine threshold of light extending from the side of the shed in the front, which was the light, and behind, which was darkness. Now in this darkness, in the general direction of the old patch of bamboo that had been cut down and the makeshift gate into the bamboo forest, there was a still darker shape. I couldn't quite make it out. I stared and squinted for a moment, not sure if I was seeing anything at all. And then it stepped into the light. It was stark, blank whiteness. It was the shape of the thinnest man, with something like a helmet on its head and something long hanging from the side of its hip. But there were no details whatsoever. Just a silhouette, a seemingly three-dimensional figure, but all I could see was flat, stark white. It was like that scene in The Matrix, when they're in their own simulation and the background is featureless, illuminated whiteness. But this was a human figure. Instead of the background, it was it. It seemed to be illuminated by the light on the shed, but it was bright white like on the screen. Not white like paper would have looked in this dim, slightly yellow light. As I was really into Japan at the time, I interpreted the apparent helmet and sword as like a samurai helmet and perhaps a katana. So I called this thing the White Samurai. Terrified, I backed away from it, which of course took me farther from the back door of the house, but it didn't seem to follow me any further. It just stood there. After a moment, I backed into a large spider web, which is about the only thing that could have torn my eyes from this thing. And so, looking up and seeing a big spider right above me, I had enough and sprinted back into the house, not even looking back at the white being, and locking the door behind me. Of course, when I told my mom, she said that I was imagining things, and when my dad got home a little while later, we all went out to look at where I'd seen the thing and have me explain exactly what happened. There was no sign of anything weird, and even the spider had left its web. Thanks for reading, y'all. Hopefully someone has seen something similar or has had some kind of insight into this encounter, because I still have no idea of what to make of it. Did it have something to do with the bamboo? Was it totally random? Listener stories are my favorite part of the show, and I'm so happy to contribute. I have a journal in which I collect paranormal and otherwise weird experiences from people I meet, first-hand accounts only, and I'm sure there are a couple in there y'all would be interested in. I also have some weird stories of my own, but I don't think they're quite fit for the show. Let me know if you want to hear them anyways. Thanks for what you do, Rick. Wow. Right? A solid white entity. But he said it looked like it was wearing a samurai helmet and had a katana, and it was stepped out of the bamboo. So what the heck?
I don't know, but that's awesome.
Very cool story.
Well, it almost feels too like it could be preying on what it wanted, like it knew what he wanted to see, right?
Yeah.
Like he could be what he would be okay with seeing.
Yeah, because he said he was really into that. I remember being that phase of life when, Bloodsport came out, Kickboxer.
What do you mean you remember? You still
that's
are.
true. I remember playing the Forgotten Realms Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. It was like
Yep.
There was a special ninja campaign you could play. I remember that. So I remember as a small boy doing similar things. I never had the money for a real katana. I know you see them at the House of Blades, or you would see them at. I always wanted one, but I never had the money to get one. So we would just fashion our own out of wood and stuff. Do you remember here at the First Monday? They used to sell them a lot, but you don't ever see that stuff no more.
Yeah, I think it's frowned upon.
First Monday is just like a bazaar, folks. Like people,
a big trades days.
Trade and sell stuff. Very, very cool.
Dude, that's awesome. That's really awesome.
How much longer are you going to be quarantined?
I will probably give it a few more days, and then I'll take another test and see if it's clear.
I got you.
And then if it's clear, then I'll probably move forward. I was talking to my doctor yesterday and all that stuff, so they were just telling me. Apparently there's like different criteria. I think it's supposed to be like 5 days after something or other, but that's why I said I started really feeling it and tested out a few days ago. So yeah, I'll probably give it till sometime next week, give it a full week. And then, like I said, take my test, but I don't really go a whole lot of places anyway. Right. So, I mean, I don't have any place to get out and go. I'm upset because I can't go to Dungeons and Dragons. I can't go to dinner with y'all for the birthday party. There's all the stuff I don't get to do this weekend. That really kind of bums me out. My granddaughter's in the Peach Festival. I can't go do that. Now she's sick. They're all got it. So everybody's sick.
Man, do you think that she had it and that's what gave it to y'all?
No, I don't think so. It almost feels like we all got it at the same place, but I don't know where, right? Like, I don't know how it all happened, but yeah. But good thing is she's just got the sniffles and all that stuff. Like I said, it's a weird strain. You know what I mean? It's not the same as like what you had or I had or any of that. So round 2, it feels like it's going to be something that's going to be around a while, I guess, too.
Yeah, probably so. Did you see where somebody blew up the Georgia Guidestones?
I saw this, yeah, and then I think they ended up tearing the rest of them down.
Yeah, that's a shame.
I wanted to go up there and see those.
I did too. I always wanted to. Anyways.
Yeah, but there's a lot of people that hate them and all the the history behind it or however it is, and all this stuff. So, I mean, I get it. So I don't know what happened. I don't know if they're going to look into it or nothing. I just saw that it blew up one morning. 1 or 2 of them did.
Yeah, what a shame. I thought that was something I would like to see. Speaking of seeing some cool things, why don't you tell everybody about our live show coming up?
Oh, that's right. October, what do we got here? The 28th, that Friday. I guess it would be the last Friday of October, 7 p.m. Kyle and I are going to be doing a live show at Panther Island Brewing in Fort Worth, Texas. You can come down there. You can get really good craft beer. We're going to have some friends. There's going to be merch for sale. We're going to be having a good time. We're going to be up there telling stories about what goes on at the brewery because it's got some pretty haunted background to it. We're going to be talking about all the wild things that are real close that you can all go see, listener stories, things that are shared with us, possibly things that have never been spoken about on the show. So we're all going to be there hanging out, drinking, having a good time, visiting with everybody. There'll be food trucks. It'll be a big time. It'll be a lot of fun, but that'll be October 28th. Here's the big thing, too. We're not charging a dime for it. You want to come, you can buy your bracelet, come in there and drink to hang out with me and Kyle. There's no charge from the Expanded Perspectives boys. You're just going to come and hang out with everybody.
Yeah, very, very cool. If you have any stories you'd like to share with me and Cam as well as the listeners, you can email the show, expandedperspectives@yahoo.com. Or if you want to tell the story, you can call the hotline. That number's 888-393-BRUD. That's 888-393-2783. That's about all the time we have for this COVID broadcast. Until next time, folks, wash your hands, be safe. I'm Kyle. He's Cam.
Peace, y'all.